Darrell Lance Abbott was born in Ennis, Texas on August 1966, the second son to Carolyn and Jerry Abbott, a country music producer. He had an older brother, Vinnie Paul, born 1964. Abbott's parents divorced in 1979 after 17 years of marriage, but his family life remained happy. The brothers lived with their mother Carolyn in a ranch-style house on Monterey Street in Arlington. Carolyn was supportive of her son's musical endeavors. Their father Jerry remained in the area after the divorce, and Darrell would often go on a bicycle to visit him for guitar lessons pretty darned regular. Abbott took up the guitar when he was 12 years old. His first guitar was a Les Paul-style Hondo, which he received along with a Pig-Nose amplifier on his 12th birthday. Influenced by Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Kiss and Van Halen, he would initially spend time in his room standing in front of a mirror holding the guitar while wearing Ace Frehley-style makeup, though he was unable to play the instrument at the time. Jerry learned Kiss songs on guitar in order to teach Darrell how to play them. Darrell also learned from country musicians who recorded at Jerry's studio, such as Bugs Henderson. Vinnie had begun playing the drums before Darrell received his first guitar. Darrell had previously tried to play the drums. Vinnie later said, "I just got better than him and wouldn't let him play them anymore." The Abbott brothers' first jam session consisted of 6 hours of Smoke on the Water. They took inspiration from Alex and Eddie Van Halen, and Vinnie said in a 2016 interview that he and Darrell were inseparable after they began playing music together. At age 14, Abbott entered a guitar contest at the Agora Ballroom in Dallas, in which Dean Zielinski, founder of Dean Guitars, was one of the judges. Abbott's mother accompanied him to the club because he was not old enough to enter on his own. He won the competition. Zielinski recalled that Abbott blew everyone away. Abbott won many other guitar contests in the area, and was eventually asked not to compete and instead judge the competitions so others could win. Pantera was formed in 1981. Vinnie was asked to join a band alongside his high school classmates Terry Glaze, Tommy Bradford and Donny Hart. Vinnie accepted the invitation, but on the condition that Darrell would also join the band. Glaze later recalled that they were unsure about this request as Darrell wasn't very good and 2 years their junior was a little skinny, scrawny dude, but they ultimately agreed. In 1989, Darrell made the same request when Dave Mustaine asked him to join Megadeth. As Mustaine had already recruited drummer Nick Menza and would not hire Vinnie, Darrell decided to stay with Pantera. By 1982, Hart left the band and was replaced by Glaze on vocals, while Rex Brown took Bradford's place as bassist. Abbott originally shared lead guitar with Glaze, but soon took permanent status as lead guitarist. Inspired by Kiss, Van Halen and Judas Priest, Pantera originally had a glam metal style and was image-conscious. The members wore spandex, makeup and hairspray when on stage. The band signed to Metal Magic Records, which was created by Jerry Eld'n, an alias of Abbott's father Jerry. Jerry also served as the band's manager and producer during this time. Pantera released its first album, Metal Magic, in 1983 when Abbott was 16. A review in the November 1983 issue of Texas-based music magazine Buddy said Abbott's solos tend to be asymmetrical in that the old theory of musical thought consisting of statements alternating with appropriate responses is ignored and replaced by authoritative delivery of the player's own concept of what should happen. Pantera released projects In the Jungle and I Am the Night in 1984 and 1985 respectively. Both albums followed on in the glam metal style and were comparable to Shout at the Devil-era Motley Crue, although I Am the Night had a slightly heavier sound than previous releases. Around this time, the Abbott brothers began listening to bands such as Metallica and Slayer. Darrell was particularly taken by Metallica's Ride the Lightning. Glaze was unhappy with the Abbott brothers' desire to move towards a heavier sound. He later said he didn't want to go that heavy. I didn't like it as well if the guitar was the main thing like the Metallica songs. This conflict, along with a contractual dispute, led to his departure in 1986. Glaze was replaced by Phil Anselmo in late 1986. This new lineup briefly signed with Gold Mountain Records, but released power metal on Metal Magic. Abbott said Gold Mountain wanted to change our style and make us sound like Bon Jovi, which is not quite up our alley. Anselmo did not write any of the lyrics for power metal, and the band was still in the process of distancing themselves from glam metal, but the album evidenced a stylistic change. Brown said in a 1988 interview that Darrell has always been chunking those riffs out from the start, but now with Phil in the band we've got a chance to make those riffs fully happen instead of having some gay singer over the top of them. The lead single from Far Beyond Driven, I'm Broken, was inspired by Anselmo's chronic back pain. To treat the pain during the tour supporting Far Beyond Driven, Anselmo began heavily consuming alcohol, painkillers and ultimately heroin. He would travel on his own tour bus and isolate himself from the other band members until 20 or 30 minutes before they were due to perform. Anselmo recalled in a 2014 interview that he would drink an entire bottle of Wild Turkey every night before a show to numb the pain, and he often interrupted the performances by ranting on stage. Due to the tensions within the band, recordings for Pantera's next album The Great Southern Trendkill were held separately. Darrell, Vinnie and Brown recorded at Chassin Jason Studio while Anselmo recorded the vocals at Trent Reznor's Nothing Studios in New Orleans. Abbott experimented with new guitars during the recording. He stated in 1996 that he wrote Suicide Note Part 1 the first time he used a 12-string guitar which Washburn Guitars had sent to him. The recording also saw Abbott draw on riffs he had composed much earlier. He wrote the outro solo to Floods in the pre-Anselmo era, and he had previously recorded a 90-minute loop of it as a lullaby for his girlfriend. On May 1996, The Great Southern Trendkill was released. It peaked at number 4 on the Billboard 200, staying on the chart for 13 weeks. It is considered to be Pantera's most extreme work and features some of the band's lowest-tuned tracks. On July, Anselmo overdosed on heroin following the band's performance at the Dallas Starplex Amphitheater and was clinically dead for 4 to 5 minutes. He recovered quickly and performed at the band's next show in San Antonio 2 days afterward, but the incident created a lasting rift within the band. Anselmo had released Nola, the debut album of one of his side projects, Down, in 1995, and supported the album with a 13-show tour. The other Pantera members were originally unperturbed by Anselmo's side projects. Abbott explained at the time, Phil's a musical guy and he likes to stay busy. The touring for The Great Southern Trendkill widened the rift within the band, and the recording sessions for their next album, Reinventing the Steel, were troublesome. Pantera were in Ireland, set to begin a European tour on September 2001. Due to the September 11th attacks, the tour was cancelled and the members returned to Texas, where they agreed to take a short hiatus. In March 2002, Down released its second record, Down 2, A Bustle in Your Hedgerow, which featured Brown on bass. 2 months later, Superjoint Ritual, another of Anselmo's bands, released its debut album, Use Once and Destroy. The Abbotts believed that Pantera would regroup in 2003, after the tours supporting Down 2 and Use Once and Destroy were concluded. Instead, Anselmo recorded a second album with Superjoint Ritual, A Lethal Dose of American Hatred. Also around this time, Darrell received a phone call from Brown, who indicated that he would not return to Pantera. The separation of Pantera was marked by the release of a greatest hits album, The Best of Pantera Far Beyond the Great Southern Cowboys Vulgar Hits, on September 2003. On December 2004, Damageplan was performing at the Alrosa Villa nightclub in Columbus, Ohio. Nathan Gale, a deranged fan, rushed onto the stage as the band played the first song of its setlist and shot Abbott multiple times with a Beretta 92 FS, a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. The band's head of security, Jeffrey Mayhem Thompson, then tackled Gale, but was fatally shot in the ensuing struggle. A fan, Nathan Bray, was also killed as he attempted to aid Abbott and Thompson, as was Aaron Hulk, an employee of the venue who tried to disarm Gale while he was reloading. 3 others were wounded before Columbus police officer James Nigmeyer entered the club and shot Gale once in the head with a 12-gauge Remington Model 870 and killing him. Abbott was pronounced dead at the scene, aged 38. Thousands of fans attended his public memorial and the guest list included artists such as Eddie Van Halen, Zakk Wylde, Corey Taylor, Jerry Cantrell and Dino Cazares. Abbott was buried alongside his mother Carolyn at the Moore Memorial Gardens Cemetery in Arlington, Texas. Gene Simmons donated a Kiss casket for the burial, and Eddie Van Halen donated his original black and yellow striped 1979 Charvel Bumblebee guitar, which was featured on the back cover of Van Halen 2 to be included in the casket. A few weeks prior to his death, Abbott had met Van Halen and asked him for a replica of the Bumblebee. Van Halen said at the funeral, "Dime was an original and only an original deserves the original."